Welcome, and welcome once again to Celebrating Black History all month long, episode number 124. We will be highlighting Gordon Parks this morning. This episode is sponsored by Always Destined for Greatness LLC, as always. So before we begin, I want to thank one of our listeners who sent me a little bit of information, a picture, and also was interested in hearing about Gordon Parks. So thank you to Sharice, our viewer, who sent me that request, as well as some information and the picture. I appreciate you as always. So we begin by highlighting Gordon Parks. Born in November 30th of 1912 in Fort Scroll, Kansas, to Andrew Jackson and Sarah Parks. He was the youngest of 15 children. His father was a local farmer. Although Gordon, who sometimes you will hear me referring today as Gordon, sometimes as Parks, because his name was Gordon Parks, Gordon attended a segregated elementary school. His high school, although, was not segregated because there wasn't enough students. The size of the town was just way too small. However, Black students were not allowed to play sports or attend school activities. They can go to school, but they were segregated from activities and from sports. Imagine that. They were also discouraged about the possibility of applying for higher education. And in fact, one of Gordon's teachers stated that it would just be a waste of money to go to college. Wow. Imagine that as well. And you might hear some noise in the background. We have our ATV guy, Namari, in the background, asking you to say a prayer for him. He's got a really bad cold. So he's on the miserable side of the house, but he's present and accountable for just the same. So again, going back, Gordon experienced firsthand racism and prejudice at the age of just 11 years old. You want to come up here and talk to everybody? Okay. All right. I'm sorry. Okay. So once again, at the age of 11, he experienced firsthand racism and prejudice when 3 white boys took him and threw him into the Marmaton River. But see, he was smart enough. So what he did was he ducked underneath the water, and he was able to navigate himself underwater to get to the land. Unbelievable. Because they thought he could not swim, they opted to throw him in the river. It's disgusting, despicable at the very least. At 14, Gordon's mom died. And in those days, when someone passed on, they were waked at their home. And so what that meant was they would bring the casket into the home of the deceased, and it would lie in state there. And so this happened with Gordon's mother as well. And what he chose to do was he laid next to the casket all night long, and he was seeking solace there, and it was his way of getting over the fear of death. Papa, you can do that. So Look, see how they can see you? See that? Okay. By age 15, he found himself on the streets defending himself. And the reason why that occurred was because he was sent after his mom's passing to go live with his sister and brother-in-law, and they did not click well, according to the stories. And so he left there and opted for the streets instead. So, struggling for survival, he worked at brothels and as a singer and as a piano player, a bus boy, a traveling waiter, and as a semi-pro basketball player. That's amazing. That is all too amazing. In 1929, he worked at the Gentlemen's Club called the Minnesota. And it was there that he observed trappings, but they had a library there. And so he was able to read many books while at the club. So when the Wall Street crash of 1929 happened, which was a major stock market crash in the United States that had a sharp decline in prices of the New York Stock Exchange. The crash began, for those of you who don't know, I researched that a little bit to explain it to you, but the crash began a rapid erosion of confidence in the United States banking system and marked the beginning of the Great Depression worldwide. And that makes a lot of sense because back in those days, folks, especially Black folks, they didn't believe in banks. And what they would do, they would take coffee cans and dig holes in their backyard. And they would stuff their money into those coffee cans and into the holes and bury them where nobody knew where it was. And I heard that on many different accounts. And so that was their banking system, their own. So due to the crash, he jumped on a train, and I mean jumped, meaning that he illegally boarded the train unpaid for. And he made his way to Chicago, Illinois, where he managed a flop house. At 28, Gordon was struck by photographs of migrant workers in a magazine. And thus that sparked something in him. And so what he did was he got interested in photography real quick. And he purchased his very first camera from a pawn shop for $12.50. So it was there that he took these photographs and he taught himself the trade. So he had to get them developed somewhere. So he went to a photography shop, and the clerk there praised him and encouraged him to seek a fashion assignment at a women's clothing store because his photographs were that good. Those photographs caught the attention of, check this out, of Marva Lewis, which was the wife of the heavyweight boxing champion, Joe Louis. Okay, wait a minute. You all right? Okay. So she encouraged him to start a business. Therefore, he specialized in photographing women of society. So Gordon's photographic work in Chicago, especially capturing the myriad, the myriad experiences of African Americans across the city. Do you see? Look. You see everybody looking at you? Okay. I'm sorry. So the myriad expresses of African Americans across the city led him to receive the Julius Rosenwald Fellowship in 1942, which paid him $200. And at that time, that was a lot of money. And it also offered him a chance to pick whoever he wanted as his employer. Okay. Okay, you want to get down? Okay. Do you want to get down?
No.
Okay, well you have to sit, okay, because we're learning and we're giving information. Okay? I'm sorry. So that led him to the Julius Rosenwald Fellowship in 1942 that paid him that $200. And with that, he had the opportunity to pick up an employer of his choice, which contributed to him joining the Farm Security Administration, known as the FSA, which received federally, which receiving federally commissioned Black photographs focusing almost exclusively on parks. Imagine that. So after the FSA's disbandment, Gordon relocated in Washington, D.C. as a correspondent with the Office of War Information, where he photographed all Black 332 fighter groups. Okay. And if you've been paying attention to the Black History all month long, we spoke about them. They were the Tuskegee Airmen. Following his resignation from the Office of War Information, he moved to Harlem and became a freelance fashion photographer for Vogue. Imagine that. Despite racist attitudes of that time, he was hired to shoot a collection of evening gowns. And that was for Vogue as well. And there he developed a distinctive style of photographing his models in motion rather than those static poses where they just like that. They jumped around, moved around. He moved around them. There was motion going on. And he developed that. So in 1948, a photographic essay on a young Harlem gang leader it landed Gordon a staff job as a writer and a photographer for Life magazine. An exhibition of photographs from 1950 projects Park completed for Life was exhibited in 2015 at the Boston Museum of Fine Arts. So that was 65 years later. But for over 20 years, Park produced photographs on fashion, on sports, on Broadway, on poverty and racism, segregation, as well as portraits of Malcolm X, Stokely Carmichael, and we spoke briefly about Stokely Carmichael as well, Muhammad Ali, and Barbra Streisand. He became one of the most provocative, celebrated photojournalists in the United States. Parks returned to his hometown of Fort Scott, Kansas, where segregation persisted. There, he documented conditions in the community and the contemporary lives of many of his 11 classmates from the segregated school that they attended. Those works were never published by Life. Makes you wonder why. In the 1950s, Park worked as a consultant for various Hollywood productions like Warner Brothers. And in 1970, he helped found Essence magazine, where he served as editorial director. In 1971, he directed the movie Shaft. We all know about Shaft. And there were several sequels to follow. In 2000, as a homage, he had a cameo appearance in the Shaft sequel. I suggest you go watch those. Director Spike Lee cites Park as an inspiration, stating you get inspiration where it comes from. It doesn't have to be because I'm looking at his films. The odds that he got those films made under where there is no black directors is enough. As luck would have it, some people wouldn't call it luck. I really don't call it luck either. But the Sesame Street character, Gordon, guess where his name came from? You're right. It came from Gordon Parks. Parks spent much of his last 3 decades, and of course, sorry. So Gordon spent last of his 3 decades evolving his artistic style until his untimely death in 2006 of cancer. He was recognized with more than 50 honorary doctorates. Listen to this. I'm going to read it all. A photographer can be a storyteller. Images of experience captured on films, when put together like words, and we talked about words just recently in our IM class last night, ironically, it can weave tales of feelings and emotions as bold as literature. Photographers bring together facts and fiction, experience, imagination, and feelings in a visual dialogue that enormous impact on how we observe and relate to the external world and our internal selves. Now, that was well said. Gordon believed his camera could be a weapon against poverty, racism, and social wrongs. He broke the color line in professional photography and became one of the most celebrated artists of the 20th century. So that concludes our highlight this morning on Gordon Parks. I want to thank you for joining. Life happens. I'm sorry, I can't apologize for that. My grandchild isn't feeling well, and so I got to roll with the punches. When he moves, I move, just like that. So with that being said about moving just like that, I would like to invite you to the 5 critical steps necessary to get unstuck, to move forward in the life you desire. And that we are going to be presenting on March 5th. And that is also presented by Boss Masterclass, Always Destined for Greatness, LLC. I will respond if you comment unstuck, and then I will send you the link. So remember, comment unstuck, and I will send you the link. We are going to remain resilient in 2025. And for those of you that are stuck and want to become unstuck and become resilient in 2025, I see you, I feel you, I hear you, I'm proud of you. And just remember, you are valuable, you are appreciated no matter what anybody tries to tell you or make you feel. With that being said, be safe, stay well. God bless you all. And remember, be always destined for greatness, your very best. Until I pop up again later today, bye for now. Namari, want to say goodbye? Bye-bye. Bye for now.